The impossible detection, the alarm that pierced through Voltrian Deep Space Command, center at 0347 hours, had never sounded before in the station's 40-year history. Commander Axis, a seasoned officer whose blue-scaled skin bore the scars of 3 galactic conflicts, felt his 4 hearts skip in perfect synchronization as he rushed to the primary console. "Report," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority that had kept peace in the Outer Rim for 2 decades. Communications Officer Zeph, barely past his first molding and eager to prove himself worthy of his position, turned from his station. With wide, amber eyes, "Sir, we've detected a vessel approaching from the void sector. But, Commander, there's something wrong with the readings." Axis moved to the main display, where a 3-dimensional map of local space showed the familiar patterns of registered traffic. Trade vessels followed their predetermined routes. Patrol ships maintained their assigned perimeters, and civilian craft broadcast their identification codes every 30 seconds as required by galactic maritime law. But there, moving through what should have been empty space, was something that defied explanation. "Show me the contact details," Axis ordered. The holographic display shifted, focusing on a small blip that moved with purpose across the stellar backdrop. Zeph's manipulator digits danced across his console, pulling up data that made no sense. "Sir, the vessel shows no registration transponder, no identification beacon, no communication array signatures. According to our sensors, it shouldn't exist." Dr. Kelrath, the station's chief scientist, approached with the measured steps of someone who had spent centuries studying the impossible and finding logical explanations. His elongated cranium, typical of the Voltrian intellectual caste, gleamed under the command center's soft lighting. "Impossible," Kelrath stated flatly. "Every object larger than a grain of sand in this sector is cataloged. Our quantum sensors can detect a single atom displaced from its expected position. Nothing moves through space without the Empire knowing about it." But even as he spoke, the readings continued to stream across their displays. The object was definitely artificial, definitely controlled, and definitely there. More troubling still, it was accelerating in ways that violated every known law of physics. "Current velocity?" Axis asked, though he dreaded the answer. "0.7 light speed and climbing," Zeph reported, his voice cracking slightly. "Sir, that's impossible. Nothing can accelerate that rapidly without exotic matter drives, and exotic matter signatures would be visible from 3 systems away." Axis studied the display, his tactical mind racing through possibilities. Pirates often used modified drives to avoid detection, but nothing in the criminal underworld could explain these readings. Rebel forces occasionally employed experimental technology, but the uprising had been crushed 5 years ago, their research facilities destroyed or captured. Could it be one of ours? He asked Dr. Kelrath. Some classified military project? Scientist's head ridge flared, a sign of deep concentration. "I have clearance for all advanced propulsion research. Nothing in development approaches these capabilities. Commander, this technology appears to be operating on principles we don't understand." The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of the station systems and the soft chirping of sensor updates. Then, without warning, the unknown vessel changed course. "Sir," Zeph's voice was barely above a whisper, "it's heading directly for us." The main display updated, showing the craft's new trajectory. At its current acceleration, it would reach their position in less than 6 hours. For the first time in his military career, Commander Axis felt something approaching uncertainty. "Battle. Stations," he ordered, "but keep weapons powered down. Zeph, try to establish communication. Use all frequencies, all languages in our database." The young communications officer nodded eagerly, grateful for something concrete to do. His training had covered first contact protocols, though no one had seriously expected him to use them. The galaxy had been thoroughly explored for over a millennium. There were no new species left to discover. Unknown vessel. This is Voltrian Deep Space Command. You are entering monitored space without proper identification. Respond immediately or face interception by patrol vessels. The transmission swept out across space at light speed, carrying the authority of the Voltrian Empire to whatever intelligence controlled the mysterious ship. For long minutes, there was no response. The vessel continued its approach, now clearly. Visible on their most powerful scopes, Dr. Kelrith gasped as the enhanced images resolved on his workstation. "Commander, you need to see this." The ship that appeared on their screens bore no resemblance to any known design. Where Voltrian vessels were elegant curves and flowing lines, this craft was angular and functional. Where galactic standard designs incorporated aesthetic elements that spoke to their builders' cultural values, this ship seemed built purely for purpose. "The hull composition," Kelrith muttered, running spectral analysis after spectral analysis. "It's not showing up correctly. My instruments detect materials that don't exist in our periodic tables. And the energy readings ... Commander, this vessel is generating more power than our entire station." Before Axis could respond, Zeph suddenly straightened at his console. "Sir, I'm receiving a transmission. Audio only, on a frequency I've never seen before." "Put it through," Axis commanded. Bridge speakers crackled to life, and a voice filled the command center. It was unlike anything they had ever heard. Not the melodious tones of Voltrian speech, nor the complex harmonics of the dozen other known species. This voice was rough, direct, and carried an odd quality that seemed to resonate with something primal in their consciousness. "Voltrian Command, this is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the Terran vessel Wanderer. Sorry for the dramatic entrance, but we've been trying to make contact with your species for quite some time." The silence that followed was profound. Axis found himself staring at the speakers as if they might provide additional explanation for what he had just heard. "Terran?" Dr. Kelrith whispered. "That's not in any of our xenological databases." Zeph recovered first, his youth allowing him to adapt more quickly to the impossible. "Captain Rodriguez, this is Communications Officer Zeph of Voltrian Deep Space Command. We show no record of your species or vessel in our databases. Please, identify your point of origin." The response came with what sounded almost like amusement. "Point of origin? That's a loaded question, Officer Zeph. We're from a little planet called Earth, about 26,000 light years from your current position. But that's not where we've been lately." 26,000 light years. The number hit the bridge crew like a physical blow. The farthest Voltrian exploration vessels had traveled was perhaps 1,000 light years from home. The energy requirements for a journey of 26,000 light years would exceed the total power output of their civilization. "Impossible," Dr. Kelrith said again, but his voice lacked conviction. "I understand your skepticism," Captain Rodriguez continued. "We've had this conversation with several other species. The universe is a much bigger and stranger place than most civilizations realize when they first achieve interstellar travel." Commander Axis found his voice. "Captain Rodriguez, I am Commander Axis of the Voltrian Empire. If you are who you claim to be, how did you locate us?" "Our civilization has been spacefaring for over 800 years. If your species existed, we would have encountered you. Commander, with respect, your species has been operating in a very small neighborhood. What you call the known galaxy represents about 0.001% of actual galactic civilization. You've been doing the equivalent of sailing around a small lake while assuming it's the entire ocean." The implications of that statement sent a chill through the bridge crew. If true, it meant everything they understood about their place in the universe was wrong. "Prove it," Axis challenged. Fair enough, Rodriguez replied. Zeph, I'm going to transmit some data to your station. It's a star chart showing the local galactic arm as we know it. You might want to sit down first. The data stream that hit their computers 30 seconds later was unlike anything they had ever processed. The chart that appeared on their main display showed thousands upon thousands of star systems, trade routes connecting civilizations they had never heard of, and technological signatures that defied their understanding of physics. By the ancient codes, Zeph breathed, staring at the display. There are hundreds of them. Thousands. How did we miss so many civilizations? You didn't miss them, Captain Rodriguez explained patiently. They're operating on technological levels your current development can't detect. It's like trying to see radio waves with your natural eyes. The infrastructure exists, but you lack the proper instruments to perceive it. Dr. Kelrith was frantically running calculations on his workstation. The energy signatures alone. Commander, if even a tenth of these readings are accurate, there are civilizations out there that could reshape matter at the atomic level. Now you're starting to understand, Rodriguez said. The question is, what do you want to do with this information? Commander Axis stared at the impossible star chart, at the readings that showed his mighty empire was nothing more than a small island in an ocean of advanced civilizations. Everything he had believed about Voltrian superiority, about their position, as the dominant force in the galaxy, crumbled in the face of evidence he could not deny. What do you want from us? He asked quietly. Want? Captain Rodriguez's voice carried a note of surprise. Commander, we don't want anything from you. We're explorers, not conquerors. We make contact with developing civilizations because isolation is dangerous. There are forces in the galaxy that don't share our peaceful intentions. Before Axis could ask what she meant, proximity alarms began sounding throughout the station. The Terran vessel had arrived. Asterisk the human factor through the vast transparent aluminum windows of the command center. Commander Axis watched the impossible. Ships settle into a parking orbit that should have been occupied by empty space. The Wanderer was larger than he had expected, easily dwarfing the largest Voltrian battle cruisers. Yet it moved with a grace that suggested perfect mastery of forces, as people were only beginning to understand. Visual contact established. Zeph reported, his voice filled with wonder. Commander, the ship's hull appears to be shifting. Indeed, the Terran vessel seemed to shimmer like water, its surface reflecting not just the light of nearby stars, but something else entirely. Dr. Kelrith was running every scan he could think of, and each one returned results that made less sense than the last. Captain Rodriguez, Axis transmitted, we can see your vessel. I must admit, your technology is beyond our current understanding. Thank you, Commander. I'd like to propose a meeting, if you're willing. I can transport over to your station. Or if you prefer, you're welcome aboard the Wanderer. I think a face-to-face conversation might help clear up some confusion. The idea of allowing an unknown alien aboard his station violated every security protocol Axis had ever learned. But the same protocols assumed any alien they encountered would be operating on roughly equivalent technological levels. If Captain Rodriguez represented a civilization that could traverse 26,000 light years, traditional security measures were meaningless anyway. We'll prepare a docking bay, he decided. Bay 7 is configured for non-standard vessels. That's very kind of you, but unnecessary, Rodriguez replied. I'll transport directly to your command center, if you don't mind. It's faster and safer for everyone involved. Before Axis could ask what she meant by transport, the air in the center of the bridge began to shimmer. Points of light appeared from nowhere, spinning and dancing around each other in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The light grew, brighter, and then, without fanfare or ceremony, Captain Elena Rodriguez stepped out of thin air. She was shorter than any adult Voltrian, with pale skin and dark hair pulled back in a functional style. Her clothing appeared to be some kind of uniform, dark blue with subtle insignia that meant nothing to the Voltrians. But it was her eyes that commanded attention. They were dark, intelligent, and held a depth of experience that spoke of journeys across impossible distances. "Greetings," she said, inclining her head slightly. "Thank you for agreeing to meet. I know this must be overwhelming." Dr. Kellereth was the first to recover from the shock of matter transmission. "How did you—" "What?" "Technology allows for instantaneous transport of living matter." Captain Rodriguez smiled, an expression that somehow managed to be both alien and reassuring. "That's a long conversation, Doctor. The short answer is that we've learned to work with the underlying structure of space-time itself. What you call empty space is actually filled with quantum possibilities. We've simply learned to choose which possibilities become reality." The explanation made no sense to any of them, but the evidence was standing in their command center. "You mentioned forces in the galaxy with less peaceful intentions," Commander Axis said, his tactical mind focusing on potential threats. "What did you mean?" Rodriguez's expression grew serious. "Commander, your species has been very fortunate to develop in this region of space. The local galactic arm is relatively quiet, protected by natural barriers that keep the more aggressive civilizations at bay. But those barriers are weakening." She gestured, and the air above her hand formed into a three-dimensional display that put their best holographic technology to shame. The image showed a section of the galaxy with various regions marked in different colors. The red zones indicate space controlled by what we call the Devourers. They're a collective intelligence that consumes entire solar systems to fuel their expansion. The yellow zones are dominated by machine civilizations that consider organic life to be inefficient and worthy of replacement. The orange zones. She paused. "Let's just say there are worse things than being conquered." Zeph leaned forward, his curiosity overcoming his fear. "How do you know about all this? How long has your species been spacefaring?" "About 3,000 years, give or take a century," Rodriguez replied casually, as if discussing the weather. "Though we didn't start exploring seriously until we figured out how to step outside conventional physics. 3,000 years. The Voltrian Empire had existed for less than a millennium, and they had considered themselves ancient and wise. The humbling continued to deepen. What makes humans different?" Dr. Kellereth asked. "Why were you able to achieve such technological advancement when other species seem limited to conventional space travel?" Captain Rodriguez considered the question carefully. "I think it comes down to how we approach problems. Most species develop logical, methodical approaches to challenges. They build on existing knowledge, refine established techniques, and gradually advance their understanding." She gestured around the command center, taking in the elegant consoles and sophisticated displays. "Your technology is beautiful, efficient, and clearly the product of centuries of careful refinement. But it's all based on the assumption that the universe operates according to fixed rules, doesn't it?" Axis asked. "Not exactly," Rodriguez smiled again. "The universe operates according to patterns, but those patterns can be influenced, bent, even rewritten if you understand the underlying mechanisms. Humans have always been good at looking at a problem and saying, what if we tried something completely different?" To demonstrate, she reached out and touched one of their quantum computers. The machine immediately began operating at efficiency, levels that should have been impossible, processing data at rates that made Zeph's console look like ancient technology. "We call it applied impossibility," she explained. "Instead of accepting that something can't be done, we figure out how to make it possible. It's not that we're smarter than other species. We're just more willing to break the rules." Dr. Kellereth was frantically taking notes, trying to record every word. "Could you teach us? Could our species learn these techniques?" Asterisk. "That's why I'm here," Rodriguez said. "We've been monitoring your development for several decades, waiting for you to reach a level where contact would be beneficial rather than destructive. Your species shows remarkable potential, but you're approaching a critical decision point." She gestured again, and the holographic display shifted to show Valtry in space, surrounded by gradually expanding spheres of influence from various galactic powers. "Within the next century, possibly sooner, your civilization will encounter forces beyond your current ability to handle. When that happens, you'll need allies, advanced technology, and most importantly, a completely different way of thinking about your place in the universe." Commander Axis studied the display, his strategic mind processing the implications. "What are you proposing?" "An exchange," Rodriguez replied. "We share our knowledge, our technology, our understanding of the galaxy. In return, you share your perspectives, your approaches to problems we might not have considered. Every species sees the universe differently, and those different viewpoints make all of us stronger." The bridge fell silent as the three Valtrians absorbed the magnitude of what was being offered. Access to technology that could revolutionize their civilization, knowledge that could protect them from threats they never knew existed, and partnership with beings who had mastered the very fabric of reality. Asterisk. "There must be conditions," Axis said finally. "Requirements we would need to meet." "Only one," Rodriguez replied. "You have to be willing to change. Not just your technology or your science, but your fundamental assumptions about what's possible. Some species can't make that transition. They're too invested in the way things have always been done." Zeph looked up from his console, where he had been analyzing the data streams from the Terran vessel. "Captain Rodriguez, your ship." "It's not just a machine, is it?" "My sensors detect what appears to be living systems integrated throughout the hull." "Very perceptive, Officer Zeph. The Wanderer is what we call a biomechanical hybrid. Part of our advancement involved learning that the distinction between living and artificial systems is largely artificial itself. The ship grows, adapts, and learns just like any organic being." Dr. Kelrath's head ridge was flaring rapidly, a sign of intense mental activity. The implications: if matter and energy can be treated as variables rather than constants, if living and mechanical systems can be integrated at the quantum level. "Commander, this could advance our civilization by millennia." "Or destroy it entirely," Axis said quietly. "Captain Rodriguez, if we accept your offer, what guarantees do we have that your people won't simply take control of our civilization?" The human captain's expression grew thoughtful. "Commander, if we wanted to control your civilization, we wouldn't need your permission. The technology gap between us is so vast that resistance would be meaningless. But conquest isn't our way. We've learned that diversity of thought and approach makes everyone stronger. A galaxy full of human-controlled worlds would be a weaker, less innovative place." She moved to the main display, where the impossible star chart still showed thousands of civilizations. "Every species we've contacted has contributed something unique to the galactic community. The Altarians taught us new approaches to energy manipulation. The Centauri Collective showed us how to integrate individual consciousness with group intelligence. The Rigel Confederation developed art forms that exist in 11 dimensions. What could we possibly contribute to beings who can rewrite the laws of physics?" Axis asked. "You'd be surprised," Rodriguez smiled. "Your species has developed remarkably stable social structures, efficient resource management, and an approach to problem-solving that balances individual initiative with collective responsibility. Those aren't technological achievements, but they're just as valuable." The command center's intercom chimed, and Admiral Vex's voice filled the bridge. "Commander Axis, our long-range sensors are detecting multiple contacts approaching from the outer rim. Recommend immediate defensive posture." Captain Rodriguez checked a device on her wrist and nodded. "Right on schedule." Don't worry, Admiral. Those are friends of mine. Through the observation windows, points of light began appearing in space around the station. Ships materialized from what seemed like empty vacuum, each one unique in design, but all sharing the same impossible technological signatures as the Wanderer. I brought a few colleagues, Rodriguez explained. If you're going to join the galactic community, you should meet some of your new neighbors. As Commander Axis watched ship after ship reveal itself around his station, he realized that the Voltrian Empire's isolation was ending whether they chose it or not. The only question was whether they would face the future as partners in a vast galactic civilization, or as primitives struggling to survive in a universe far stranger and more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Captain Rodriguez, he said finally, I think we need to discuss terms. The human smiled, and in that expression, Axis saw the promise of adventures beyond his wildest dreams and challenges that would test everything his species believed about themselves and their place in the cosmos. The age of Voltrian isolation was ending. The age of galactic citizenship was about to begin. Asterisk.